Gary, Indiana, an overview. Gary is a city in Lake County, Indiana, United States, and borders Porter County to the east. Historically, Gary was dominated by major industrial activity. The city is located along the southern shore of Lake Michigan, about 25 miles 40 km east of downtown Chicago, Illinois. Gary is adjacent to the Indiana Dunes National Park, and within the Chicago metropolitan area. Gary was named after lawyer Albert Henry Gary, who was the founding chairman of the United States Steel Corporation. The city is known for its large steel mills and is the birthplace of the Jackson family, although initially a very diverse city. After white flight in the earth, the city of Gary held the nation's highest percentage of African Americans for several decades. Per the 2020 census, the population was 69,093. Once a prosperous steel town, it has suffered drastic population loss due to overseas competition and restructuring of industry, falling by 61% from its peak of 178,320 in 1960. History. Founding in early years. Gary, Indiana, was founded in 1906 by the United States Steel Corporation as the home for its new plant, Gary Works. The city was named after lawyer Albert Henry Gary, who was the founding chairman of the United States Steel Corporation. Gary was the site of civil unrest in the steel strike of 1919. On October 4, 1919, a riot broke out on Broadway, the main north-south street through downtown Gary, between steel workers and strike breakers brought in from outside. 3 days later, Indiana Governor James P. Goodrich declared martial law. Shortly thereafter, over 4,000 federal troops under the command of Major General Leonard would arrive to restore order. Jobs offered by the steel industry provided Gary with very rapid growth and a diverse population within the first 26 years of its founding. According to the 1920 United States Census, 29.7% of Gary's population at the time was classified as foreign-born, mostly from Eastern European countries, with another 30.8% classified as native-born with at least one foreign-born parent. By the 1930 United States Census, the first census in which Gary's population exceeded 100,000, the city was the fifth largest in Indiana and comparable in size to South Bend, Fort Wayne, and Evansville. At that time, 78.7% of the population was classified as white, with 19.3% of the population classified as foreign-born and another 25.9% as native-born with at least one foreign-born parent. In addition to white internal migrants, Gary had attracted numerous African American migrants from the South in the Great Migration, and 17.8% of the population was classified as black. 3.5% were classified as Mexican, now likely to be identified as Hispanic, as some were likely American citizens in addition to immigrants. Post-World War II, Gary's fortunes have risen and fallen with those of the steel industry. The growth of the steel industry brought prosperity to the community. Broadway was known as a commercial center for the region. Department stores and architecturally significant movie houses were built in the downtown area and the Glen Park neighborhood. In the earth, like many other American urban centers reliant on one particular industry, Gary entered a spiral of decline. Gary's decline was brought on by the growing overseas competitiveness in the steel industry, which had caused U.S. Steel to lay off many workers from the Gary area. The U.S. Steel Gary Works employed over 30,000 in 1970. declined to just 6,000 by 1990, and further declined to 5,100 in August 2015. Attempts to shore up the city's economy with major construction projects, such as a Holiday Inn hotel and the Genesis Convention Center, failed to reverse the decline. A rapid racial change occurred in Gary during the late 20th century. These population changes resulted in political change which reflected the racial demographics of Gary. The non-white share of the city's population increased from 21% in 1930, 39% in 1960, to 53% in 1970. Non-whites were primarily restricted to living in the Midtown section just south of downtown. Per the 1950 census, 97% of the black population of Gary was living in this neighborhood. Gary had one of the nation's first African-American mayors, Richard G. Hatcher, and hosted the groundbreaking 1972 National Black Political Convention. In the late years and early years, Gary had the highest percentage of African Americans of U.S. cities, with a population of 100,000 or more, 84% as of the 2000 U.S. Census. This no longer applies to Gary since the population of the city has now fallen well below 100,000 residents. As of 2013, the Gary Department of Redevelopment has estimated that 1/3 of all homes in the city are unoccupied and abandoned use. Steel continues to be a major steel producer, but with only a fraction of its former level of employment. While Gary has failed to re-establish a manufacturing base since its population peak, 2 casinos opened along the Gary Lake shore in the years, although this has been aggravated by the state closing of Klein Avenue, an important access to the area. Today, Gary faces the difficulties of a Rust Belt city, including unemployment and decaying infrastructure. Recent history. Gary has closed several of its schools within the last 10 years. While some of the school buildings have been reused, most remain unused since their closing. As of 2014, Gary is considering closing additional schools in response to budget deficits. Gary Chief of Police Thomas Houston was convicted of excessive force and abuse of authority in 2008. He died in 2010 while serving a 3-year, 5-month federal prison sentence. In April 2011, 75-year-old Mayor Rudolph M. Clay announced that he would suspend his campaign for re-election as he was being treated for prostate cancer. He endorsed rival Karen Freeman Wilson, who won the Democratic mayoral primary in May 2011. Freeman Wilson won election with 87% of the vote, and her term began in January 2012. She is the first woman elected mayor in the city's history. She was re-elected in 2015. She was defeated in her bid for a third term in the 2019 Democratic primary by Lake County Assessor Jerome Prince. Since no challenges filed for the November 2019 general election, Prince's nomination is effectively tantamount to election, and officially succeeded Freeman Wilson on January 1, 2020, 2 days after he was sworn in as the city's 21st mayor on December 30. In May 2021, a $300 million Hard Rock Casino location opened in the city. Branded as Hard Rock Casino Northern Indiana, the location includes memorabilia from local natives Jackson 5 and a 1,950-seat Hard Rock Live Performance Hall. National Register of Historic Places. The following single properties and National Historic Districts are listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Neighborhoods. Downtown Gary. Downtown Gary is separated by Broadway into 2 distinctive communities, Originally, the city of Gary consisted of the east side, the west side, the south side, the area south of the train tracks near 9th Avenue, and Glen Park, located further south along Broadway. The east side was demarcated by streets named after the states in order of their acceptance into the Union. This area contained mostly wood frame houses, some of the earliest in the city, and became known in the 20th century for its ethnic populations from Europe and large families. The single-family houses had repeating house designs that alternated from one street to another, with some streets looking very similar. Among the East Side's most notable buildings were Memorial Auditorium, a large red brick and stone civic auditorium and the site of numerous events, concerts and graduations, the Palace Theatre, Emerson School, St. Luke's Church, H.C. Gordon and Sons, and Goldblatt's department stores, in addition to the Fair department store. All fronted Broadway as the main street that divided Gary. The west side of Gary, or west of Broadway, the principal commercial street, had streets named after the presidents of the United States in order of their election. Litton's, Hudson's Ladies Store, J.C. Penney, and Radiganbro's furniture store developed on the west side of Broadway. Developed later, the side of town was known for its masonry or brick residences, its taller and larger commercial buildings, including the Gary National Bank Building, Hotel Gary Noel Genesis Towers, the Knights of Columbus Hotel and building now a seniors building fronting 5th Avenue, the Tivoli Theatre demolished, the U.S. Post Office, Main Library, Mercy and Methodist Hospitals and Holy Angels Cathedral and School. The west side also had a secondary principal street, 5th Avenue, which was lined with many commercial businesses, restaurants, theatres, tall buildings, and elegant apartment buildings. The west side was viewed as having wealthier residents. The houses dated from about 1908 to the heirs. Much of the west side's housing were for executives of U.S. Steel and other prominent businessmen. Notable mansions were 413 Tyler Street and 636 Lincoln Street. Many of the houses were on larger lots. By contrast, a working-class area was made up of row houses made of poured concrete were arranged together and known as mill houses. They were built to house steel mill workers. The areas known as Emerson and Downtown West combined to form Downtown Gary. It was developed in the eras and houses several pieces of impressive architecture, including the Mill House, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, and another, the Wynand House 1917, which was destroyed by fire. A significant number of older structures have been demolished in recent years because of the cost of restoration. Restructuring of the steel and other heavy industry in the late 20th century resulted in a loss of jobs, adversely affecting the city. Abandoned buildings in the downtown area include historic structures such as Union Station, the Palace Theatre, and City Methodist Church. A large area of the downtown neighborhood, including City Methodist, was devastated by a major fire on October 12, 1997. Interstate 90 was constructed between downtown Gary and the United States Steel Plant. West. Ambridgeman is a neighborhood located on Gary's near west side along 5th Avenue. Ambridge was developed for workers at the nearby steel plant in the Ers and Ers. It is named after the American Bridge Works, which was a subsidiary of U.S. Steel. The neighborhood is home to a huge stock of Prairie-style and Art Deco homes. The Gary Masonic Temple was located in the neighborhood, along with Ambassador Apartment Building. Located just south of Interstate 90, the neighborhood can be seen while passing Buchanan Street. Brunswick is located on Gary's far west side. The neighborhood is located just south of Interstate 90 and can also be seen from the expressway. The Brunswick area includes the Tri-City Plaza Shopping Center on West 5th Avenue US 20. The area is south of the Gary-Chicago International Airport. Downtown West is located in north-central Gary on the west side of Broadway just south of Interstate 90. The Genesis Convention Center, the Gary Police Department, the Lake Superior Courthouse, and the main branch of the Gary Public Library are located along 5th Avenue. A new 123-unit mixed-income apartment development was built using HUD-HOP via grant in 2006. The Adam Benjamin Metro Center is located just north of 4th Avenue. It is operated by the Gary Public Transportation Corporation and serves as a multimodal hub. It serves both as the downtown Gary South Shore train station and an intercity bus stop. Tolleston is one of Gary's oldest neighborhoods, predating much of the rest of the city. It was platted by George Toll in 1857 when the railroads were constructed in this area. This area is west of Midtown and south of Ambridge, Man. Terrytown is a subdivision located in Tolleston between Whitcomb Street and Clark Road. South. Black Oak is located on the far southwest side of Gary, in the vicinity of the Bow Street exit to the Borman Expressway. It was annexed in the Urs. Prior to that, Black Oak was an unincorporated area and formerly associated with Hammond, and the area has Hammond telephone numbers. After 3 referendums, the community voters approved annexation, having been persuaded by Mayor Hatcher that they would benefit more from services provided by the city than from those provided by the county. In the 21st century, it is the only majority white neighborhood in Gary. Glen Park is located on Gary's far south side and is made up mostly of mid-20th century houses. Glen Park is divided from the remainder of the city by the Borman Expressway. The northern portion of Glen Park is home to Gary's Gleason Park Golf Course and the campus of Indiana University Northwest. The far western portion of Glen Park is home to the Village Shopping Center. Glen Park includes the 37th Avenue corridor at Broadway. Midtown is located south of downtown Gary, along Broadway. In the previous days of de facto segregation, this developed historically as a black neighborhood as African Americans came to Gary from the rural South in the Great Migration to seek jobs in the industrial economy. North and East. Etna is located on Gary's far east side along the Dunes Highway. Etna predates the city of Gary. This company town was founded in 1881 by the Etna Powder Works, an explosives company. Their factory closed after the end of World War I. The town of Etna was annexed by Gary in 1928, around the same time that the city annexed the town of Miller. In the late years and early years, Gary's prosperous industries helped generate residential and other development in Etna, resulting in an impressive collection of Art Deco architecture. The rest of the community was built after World War I and the Korean War in the Urs, in a series of phases. On its south and east, Etna borders the undeveloped floodplain of the Little Calumet River. Emerson is located in north-central Gary on the east side of Broadway. Located just south of Interstate 90, Gary City Hall is located in Emerson, along with Indiana Department of Social Services building and the Calumet Township Trustee's office. A 6,000-seat minor league baseball stadium for the Gary South Shore Railcats, U.S. Steel Yard, was constructed in 2002, along with contiguous commercial space and minor residential development. Miller Beach, also known simply as Miller, is on Gary's far northeast side. Settled in the Urs and incorporated as an independent town in 1907, Miller was annexed by the city of Gary in 1918. Miller developed around the old stagecoach stop and train station known by the Urs as Miller's Junction and Miller Station. Miller Beach is racially and economically diverse. It attracts investor interest due to the many year-round and summer homes within walking distance of Marquette Park and Lake Michigan. Prices for lakefront property are affordable compared to those in Illinois suburban communities. Lake Street provides shopping and dining options for Miller Beach visitors and residents. East Edge, a development of 28 upscale condominium, townhome, and single-family homes, began construction in 2007 at the eastern edge of Miller Beach along County Line Road, 1 block south of Lake Michigan. Geography. The city is located at the southern end of the former lake bed of the prehistoric Lake Chicago and the current Lake Michigan. Most of the city's soil, to nearly 1 foot below the surface, is pure sand. The sand beneath Gary and on its beaches is of such volume and quality that for over a century companies have mined it, especially for the manufacture of glass. According to the 2010 census, Gary has a total area of 57.18 square miles, 148.1 km, of which 49.87 square miles, 129.16 km or 87.22% is land, and 7.31 square miles, 15.93 km or 12.78% is water. Gary is T-shaped, with its northern border on Lake Michigan. In the northwestern section, Gary borders Hammond and East Chicago. Miller Beach, its estuarine neighborhood, borders Lake Station and Portage. Gary's southernmost section borders Griffith, Hobart, Merrillville, and unincorporated Ross. Gary is about 13 miles 48 km from the Chicago Loop. Climate. Gary is listed by the Geiger Climate Classification System as humid continental TFA. In July and August, the warmest months, high temperatures average 80 for F29C and peak just above 100 F38C, and low temperatures average 63 F17C. In January and February, the coldest months, high temperatures average around 29 FC and low temperatures average 13 FC, with at least a few days of temperatures dipping below 0 FC. The weather in Gary is greatly regulated by its proximity to Lake Michigan. Weather varies yearly. In the summer months, Gary is humid. The city's yearly precipitation averages about 40 inches. Summer is the rainiest season. Winters vary but are predominantly snowy. Snowfall in Gary averages approximately 25 inches per year. Sometimes large blizzards hit because of lake effect snow, a phenomenon whereby large amounts of water evaporated from the lake deposit onto the shoreline areas as inordinate amounts of snow. Demographics. The change in the economy and resulting loss of jobs has caused a drop in population by more than half since its peak in 1960. The 2020 census. Note: the U.S. Census treats Hispanic Latino as an ethnic category. This table excludes Latinos from the racial categories and assigns them to a separate category. Hispanics or Latinos can be of any race. The 2010 census. As of the census of 2010, there were 80,294 people, 31,380 households, and 19,691 families residing in the city. The population density was 1,610.1 inhabitants per square mile. There were 39,531 housing units at an average density of 792.7 per square mile. The racial makeup of the city was 84.8% African American, 10.7% white, 0.3% Native American, 0.2% Asian, 1.8% from other races, and 2.1% from two or more races. Hispanic or Latino people of any race were 5.1% of the population. Non-Hispanic whites were 8.9% of the population in 2010, down from 39.1% in Earth, with 31,380 households, of which 33.5% had children under the age of 18 living with them. 25.2% were married couples living together. 30.9% had a female householder with no husband present, 6.7% had a male householder with no wife present, and 37.2% were non-families. 32.8% of all households were made up of individuals, and 11.9% had someone living alone who was 65 years of age or older. The average household size was 2.54 and the average family size was 3.23. The median age in the city was 36.7 years. 28.1% of residents were under the age of 18, 8.6% were between the ages of 18 and 24, 21.8% were from 25 to 44, 27.1% were from 45 to 64, and 14.5% were 65 years of age or older. The gender makeup of the city was 46% male and 54% female. (2000) Census. As of the census of 2000, there were 102,746 people, 38,244 households, and 25,623 families residing in the city. The population density was 2,045.5 inhabitants per square mile. There were 43,630 housing units at an average density of 868.6 per square mile. The racial makeup of the city was 84.03% African American, 11.92% white, 0.1% Native American, 0.14% Asian, 0.02% Pacific Islander, 1.97% from other races, and 1.71% from two or more races. Hispanic or Latino people of any race were 4.93% of the population. There were 38,244 households, out of which 31.2% had children under the age of 18 living with them, 30.2% were married couples living together, 30.9% had a female householder with no husband present, and 33% were non-families. 28.9% of all households were made up of individuals, and 9.4% had someone living alone who was 65 years of age or older. The average household size was 2.66 and the average family size was 3.28. In the city, the population was spread out, with 29.9% under the age of 18, 10.1% from 18 to 24, 25.1% from 25 to 44, 22.2% from 45 to 64, and 12.8% who were 65 years of age or older. The median age was 34 years. For every 100 females, there were 84.6 males. For every 100 females age 18 and over, there were 78 males. The median income for a household in the city was $27,195, and the median income for family was $32,205. Males had a median income of $34,992 versus $24,432 for females. The per capita income for the city was $14,383. About 22.2% of families and 25.8% of the population were below the poverty line, including 37.9% of those under age 18 and 14.1% of those age 65 or over. Arts and culture. Arts and film. Meredith Willson's 1957 Broadway musical The Music Man featured the song Gary, Indiana, in which lead character and con-man Professor Harold Hill wistfully recalls his purported hometown, then prosperous. Hill claims to be an alumnus of Gary Conservatory of Music, class of 5, but this is later revealed to be another of his lies. The city of Gary was not founded until 1906. Wilson's musical, set in 1912, was adapted both as a film of the same name released in 1962 and as a television film produced in 2003. The 1996 urban film The Original Gangsters was filmed in the city. It starred Gary native Fred Williamson, Pam Grier, Jim Brown, Richard Roundtree, and Isabel Sanford, among others. Since the early years, Gary has been the setting for numerous films made by Hollywood filmmakers. In 2009, scenes for the remake of The Nightmare on Elm Street were filmed in Gary. Scenes from Transformers: Dark of the Moon are wrapped up filming on August 16. Earth History Channel documentary Life After People was filmed in Gary, exploring areas that have deteriorated or been abandoned because of the loss of jobs and residents in John Mellencamp's 1985 song Minutes to Memories. An old man on a bus, recalling his humble life, tells the young man beside him, "I worked my whole life in the steel mills of Gary." Historic places on the National Register. Public libraries. The Gary Public Library system consists of the main library at 220 West 5th Avenue and several branches: Brunswick Branch, W.E.B. Du Bois Branch, J.F. Kennedy Branch, Toleston Branch, and Woodson Branch. In March 2011, the Gary Library Board voted to close the main library on 5th Avenue and the Toleston branch in what officials said was their best economic option. The main library closed at the end of 2011. The building now houses the Muson Lake County Public Library, operates the Black Oak branch at 5,920 1 West 25th Avenue in the Gary city limits. In addition, Indiana University Northwest operates the John W. Anderson Library on its campus. Sports. The following sports franchises are based in Gary. The Gary South Shore Railcats are an American Association professional baseball team. The team plays in Gary's U.S. Steel Yard Baseball Stadium. The Railcats played in the Northern League from 2002 until 2010. They now play in the Modern American Association. The team won league championships in 2005, 2007, and 2013. Gary has hosted 2 professional basketball franchises. The Gary Splash played in the International Basketball League from 2010 to 2013 at the Genesis Convention Center. Previously, the Gary Steelers played in the Genesis Convention Center as part of the IBL, CBA, USBL, and IBL. Education. 3 school districts serve the city, and multiple charter schools are located within the city. Public schools. Most public schools in Gary are administered by the Gary Community School Corporation. The other public schools within the city are administered by Lake Ridge Schools Corporation, which is the school system for the Black Oak neighborhood and unincorporated Calumet Township. Due to annexation law, Black Oak residents retained their original school system and were not required to attend Gary public schools. In 1927, it was mandated that black students attend a separate high school. Charter schools. Charter schools in Indiana, including those in Gary, are granted charters by one of a small number of chartering institutions. Indiana charter schools are generally managed in cooperation between the chartering institution, a local board of parents and community members, salaried school administrators, and a management company. Charter schools in Gary as of 2011 include the Bowman Leadership Academy, Charter School of the Dunes, Gary Lighthouse Charter School, formerly Blessed Sacrament Parish and Grade School, and 21st Century Charter. Higher education. Gary is home to two regional state college campuses: Indiana University Northwest, Ivy Tech Community College Northwest. Media. Newspapers. Gary is served by two major newspapers based outside the city and by Gary-based, largely African-American interest paper. These papers provide regional topics and cover events in Gary. The Post-Tribune, originally the Gary Post-Tribune, is now based in the nearby town of Merrillville. The Times, previously known as the Hammond Times. Offices and facilities for the Times are in nearby Munster. The Gary Crusader, based in Gary and largely focused on African American interests and readership. The INFO newspaper, based in Gary and largely focused on African American interests and readership. The Chicago Tribune and the Chicago Sun-Times, based in Chicago, are also distributed in Gary. Television and radio. Gary is served by 5 local broadcasters plus government access and numerous Chicago area radio and TV stations, and by other nearby stations in Illinois and Indiana. WPW or TV Channel 50 is the Chicago My Network affiliate that is licensed to Gary. Studios and transmitters are co-located with Foods in Chicago and are also owned by Fox television stations. WYN Channel 56 is a PBS affiliate licensed to Gary. Their studios are in Merrillville. WGB-FM 88.7 is owned by the Gary Community School Corporation and is used primarily as a teaching facility. Programming is maintained by students in the broadcast program at the Gary Career Center. WGB also carries limited NPO programming. WLTH-AM 1370 primarily carries talk programming as well as other local programs. WWCAM 1270 is a relevant radio-owned and operated radio station, carrying programming from the Catholic-oriented Relevant Radio Network. Infrastructure. Medical facilities. Gary Community Health Center, Methodist Hospital, Police. Gary is served by the Gary Police Department and the Lake County Sheriff. While 1 in 270 people are victimized by violent crime in Indiana, that rate is 1 in 177 in Gary. Fire Department. The Gary Fire Department GFD provides fire protection and emergency medical services to the city of Gary. Transportation. Gary Public Transportation Corporation GPTC is a commuter bus system that offers service to numerous stops throughout the city and neighboring suburbs. GPTC also has express service to locations outside the city, including connections to Chicago Transit. Front door pickup is available for disabled citizens at no extra cost. Gary Chicago International Airport is operating as the third airport for the Chicago area. With a new runway, it is undergoing much federally funded expansion, and the administration is courting airlines aggressively. The National Guard is intending to base the Chicago area operation there as well. Interstate 90, I-90, Indiana Toll Road, I-80, I-94, and I-65 run through Gary, as well as US Highway 6, US 6, US 12 and US 20, and State Road 912 SR 912, Klein Avenue. A former stretch of SR 312 has been decommissioned. Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District NICTD operates the South Shore Line, a commuter rail system between Chicago and South Bend. It is one of the last original operating interurban railway systems in the U.S. Notable people. The Jacksons. Gary is the hometown of the Jackson family, a family of musicians who influenced the sound of modern popular music. In 1950, Joseph and Catherine Jackson moved from East Chicago, Indiana into their two-bedroom house at 2300 Jackson Street. They had married on November 5, 1949. Their entertainer children later recorded a song entitled 2300 Jackson Street 1989. The Jackson children include other notable people. Sister cities: Fuxin, Liaoning, China; Lagos, Nigeria. Further reading: Lane, James 1978. City of the Century, A History of Gary, Indiana. Bloomington, Indiana, Indiana University Press. ISBN 0-253-11187-0. Lane, James 2006. Gary's First 100 Years, A Centennial History of Gary, Indiana 1906-2006. Valparaiso, Indiana, Home Mountain Printing. ISBN 0977351114. Lane, James B. Cohen, Ronald D. 2003. Gary, Indiana, A Pictorial History. Virginia Beach, via Dunn & Company Publishers. ISBN 9781642,642,106. Mull, Raymond at Betten, Neil 1986. Steel City Urban and Ethnic Patterns in Gary, Indiana, 1906-1950. New York, Holmes and Meyer. ISBN 978-841,910,775. Horror, Espol 2011. Gary, the most American of all American cities. Bloomington, Ind. Uy, Indiana Onev. Press. ISBN 9,780,253,222,886. Thank you for watching our video on Gary, Indiana, brought to you by the Curefik. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.